Now, of course, you don't expect users to type their first name and last name directly on the URL bar. It would be better to render a nice form for the user. We can do that using HTML. So let's create a new template on the templates folder called form HTML. An HTML form is defined using the form open and close tags. Anything inside these tags will be considered part of the form. So start with start form, end form. Next, we'll add our fields. For that, we use the input tags. So let's add the first name and last name inputs between the form tags. Input has a type. In this case, these are text fields. There's other types we'll see in the course. You also want to add a name, which is how the variable name will be passed to our application. In order for the user to actually send the data, we need a button. So add the following. This looks good, but we're missing something important. We need to tell the form to which route to send this when the user presses submit. So add the following to the form tag. Form action equals /form. But wait, remember I told you to never hardcode any URLs on your templates? That includes the form actions. So let's replace that with form action equals URL for form. So our whole form looks like this. Save the form HTML file and now head over to hello.py and replace the form route with the following code. So what's happening here? First, we check if the query parameter list has a submit variable. This only happens after we press the submit button. If we see that, then we read the query parameters, first name and last name, and print it out in the screen. However, the first time we hit the page, we won't have the submit query parameter, so the if condition fails and we render the form template. Save the file and stop and restart the Flask server just in case. I'll explain why we need to do this in a bit. So now if you head over to localhost :5000/form, you will see the form is rendered. Now enter a first name and last name and press submit. You'll see the variables printed out. The post method is different from the get method in a couple of important ways. Get sends the data using the URL. Post sends data using the body of the request, so it's hidden from the user, which makes it better to send sensitive or private data. There's also a limit to the data you send in GET request. No limit for POST. GET requests are cached by the browser, useful to represent a state of the application. POST requests are not cached by the browser. So let's change the form to use POST instead of GET, as first name and last name might be sensitive information we don't want to be passing publicly on the URL. First, we add a method parameter to the form tag in form HTML so that it looks like this. Save the file. Now we need to modify the route on hello.py and add a post method. We leave the get method because the first time you hit the page to render the form, it's actually a get request. Now to check if the user submitted data, we change the if to read like this. If request.method equals post. This condition will only be true when the user presses submit on a form that uses the post method. Finally, to read the data, we'll use a different request method called form. First name equals request.form.get first name. Last name equals request.form.get last name. Save the file and restart the Flask server. Now go to the form URL and notice how when you submit, the values are not displayed on the URL anymore. There's a third way to read the values of a form, and that's using request.values. Just change the two variable assignments to read like this. First name equals request.values.get first name. lastname equals request values.get lastname. Save the file and restart the server. You should get the same result. The cool thing about request values is that it reads both get and post data, so you don't have to use args or form on the request assignment. So that's convenient. When the operation after you hit submit alters the database in any way, it's not good to allow the user to just hit reload over and over on that page, because that would create multiple identical records. For example, let's say the first name and last name in the previous example was to create a new user account. So when we land on the section where we fetch the variables and a database record is created, a user can then hit reload 100 times and create 100 accounts. So it's always good practice to send the user to a thank you page after the form is submitted. That way, the user can reload the page and nothing happens. So we could do something like this on the form route. That last line will redirect the browser to a route called registered. Let's create that. We need to add both redirect and URL for to the file. So on line 1, add from Flask import Flask render template request redirect URL for. Save the file and hit /form on your browser. You will see how after you submit, you're taken to the new URL, thank you. You can reload this page over and over and no new records would be created.